This is NFA Talk, the show that talks about guns and gun rights, keeping you up to date with what's currently going on, from the newest guns, promotions, and events, plus how we're lobbying for your rights.
And we're back with another episode of NFA Talk. I'm Jordan Vandenhoff. I'm joined today with Sheldon Clare, Charles Zach, and our special guest, David Yurdiga. Also joining him, his grandson, Ethan. Hey, David, how's it going?
Great, Jordan. I'm the member of Parliament for Fort McMurray Cold Lake, and I'm zooming in or chatting with you from my home in my mudroom, or I call it a mudroom, but it's my man cave. But it's good to be on your show tonight.
We're good. And you brought your grandson as a guest.
Yes, it's he's been shooting since he was about 5 years old.
Nice.
So, and he's 12 now. So he's very good at doing what he does.
So Ethan, tell us about your hunting. What do you like to hunt?
I like to hunt gophers, magpies. What else? Foxes and coyotes. Squirrels.
Oh, right on. So you're a predator and pest control expert is what you are.
Yeah.
I need you in the backyard.
Yeah, it's sort of like family tradition. My grandfather, or my Guido, I'm Ukrainian background, he taught me how to shoot and hunt, and then my dad taught my son how to hunt, and all the rules and how to use a firearm safely, and now my role is to teach my grandson Ethan, and then hopefully my son will teach his grandchildren how to shoot, because it's very important, a part of who we are. Yeah, because we always use guns as a tool, and I really get frustrated when a lot of people say a gun is a weapon. No, for me it's a tool. When you say weapon, it's always the intent to do harm to other humans. So it's a tool, just like a knife or an axe for me. And a lot of times people just don't get that through their head that no, this is necessary. We need these firearms to protect our herds, pest control, and we've been doing it for generations, and safely, and no issues, no problems.
Exactly. By the way, I wanted to thank you for your message in Parliament the other day when you were talking about firearms and also about veterans. As a former service member myself, I always appreciate when members of Parliament stand up and put a shout out for veterans and also stand up for our firearms rights as you've done. And I wanted to thank you for that, sir.
No, we all have to stand up together, because this is a critical point in history that potentially we can lose our gun rights. So we got to do whatever we can to make sure our voices are heard.
Well, we've certainly been losing our gun rights for 60 years in this country. I mean, they've steadily eroded away from the times when I grew up, and I'm just a little bit older than you are. I think you're about 56 or so. But I remember the day when I could walk down to the local shooting range at the basement of the post office on a Sunday morning at 14 years of age with my rifle in my hand, and nobody would say a word. I mean, I had a policeman stop me once and ask me where I was going, and I told him, and he said, well, have a good shoot. And away he went. That wouldn't happen today.
Yeah, I agree with you there. When I was in high school, I had a truck, and most of the kids my age had a truck that we had a gun rack in the back. And we typically had, I had a 22, I had a 12 gauge shotgun, and a 303, and there was no issues. So because that was part of a tool, and you can never get away with that nowadays. And there was no issues. Nobody got hurt. There was no killings. I mean, we're brought up that way, and we respected what a gun can do. And here we are now that we're looking at even eliminating some of our shotguns. What concerns me, my grandfather, or my Guido, like I like to call him, he gave me a Cooey. It was, I believe it's Model 84 and built in the early 40s, I assume. and it potentially could be banned. And I wanted to pass that on to my grandson, Ethan, when he gets older. But that could be in jeopardy. And this is just, we don't use it because it's special. It's, I can't even hang it on the wall because that's illegal. But it meant something to me because that was given to me by my Guido. And now I'm just thinking, this could be it. I could be the last owner of the gun, and that's a problem.
You could hang it on the wall if you put a trigger lock on it. And if it was in a room that was lockable, you could do that. I think that would work. But the point is, you used to be able to just put it on the wall if you wanted to,
or in the back of the truck,
or in the back of the truck. And you and I, Ethan, your grandfather and I have shared a very similar time in growing up when we understood what freedom meant, and now, sometimes I feel like a frog that's been thrown into a pot of boiling water. Except I got thrown into that pot of boiling water when I was about 18, and it's been on simmer. And I've seen these rights get eroded and eroded and eroded. We used to be able to hunt with AR-15s, for example. They were very good for what Ethan likes to do, for predator control. They're just perfect for that. Standard capacity magazines were the order of the day. Everybody had them. We all used them judiciously and fairly. When you're hunting a big game animal, of course, it's one shot, one kill. That's the goal. But when you have a pack of wolves, you want to be able to have multiple follow-up shots when they start running, and they do start running.
Well, even I like what you're saying there about like we do have. I live on a farm, I have a ranch here, and bears are an issue in my area here, and a lot of times, I just can't go out there with a single shot rifle because you never know what can happen. So you need that extra capacity to not only protect your animals but to protect yourself.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people just don't get that. Well, why do you need multiple shots? Well, there's a reason.
Yeah. You have a pack of wolves with 20 animals in it, and you're looking a little bit silly if you're trying to fumble with you're trying to stuff 5 loose cartridges into your belly dump magazine.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Yeah, we just got to get the message out there that guns are a tool. And the funny story I can tell you, my grandson he's I don't know where he gets his talent from, but I suspect it's from my wife Kathy. I call him Eagle Eye because he made $1,000. I forgot how much was they paying you for shooting a gopher? $3, $4? Anyways, he made $1,000 in a month and a half in the summer. But I took credit that it's from my genes. But in reality, we went my wife and myself and Ethan. We were in Fort McMurray at the rifle range, and my wife never shot a gun. She didn't have to. She wasn't her interest. But we shamed her into doing it, and I regret it now. So first time using a gun, she hit 8 out of 10 targets.
Now I see why you regret
it. Then I realized that no, my grandson got the skills from my wife because first time shooting, she did a great job. So, but it's a sport thing, a family thing. A lot of people don't realize going to the range is a family thing.
Of course,
he got to shoot a handgun. So he got I forgot what size it was a 9mm or so all about the gun safety teaching. I mean, that's the biggest thing with gun ownership is when I was growing up, we were taught safety because we used it almost every day. So you knew all the rules and you passed that on from generation to generation. And going to a gun range is very important because a lot of people don't live in the countryside. They don't have the same, massive property where I can target practice here but a lot of people in the urban settings, they need a gun range and they have to practice their craft, and it's a sport like anything else. It's competitive, and so there's a lot of misconceptions about guns, and a lot of times it's a lot of people think guns as a weapon and it kills people, and they're not really looking at the bigger picture. And criminals.
And that's the narrative that they're always. Oh, there's a big echo in here.
Yeah, you got some feedback there, Charles.
Yeah, is that better?
Yeah,
Yep.
it's cleaned up.
Okay, there we go. Okay, yeah, David, and that was a great segue. I mean, you talked about the banning of the firearms that already happened as well, and you're talking about your grandson, shooting pistols and whatnot. That's next on the chopping block. We know that, Trudeau's already signaled that he's prepared to do that. We know that they're crafting, regulation as we speak. We're not sure exactly how that's going to play out. And the gun community is once again, on edge and fearful again that we're going to be losing more of our private property. And I guess recently you just got up and you in the House of Commons, and we watched you on the video where you talked about petitioning the government to stop this nonsense. So I'd like to hear a little bit something about your view on the handgun side of things, because that's what's coming up.
Maybe we should roll the video first so everybody can listen or see it. So yeah, let me roll the video for you guys.
Presenting petitions, the honourable member for Fort McMurray, Cold Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to present two petitions this morning. The first petition calls upon the House of Commons to stop plans to implement a ban on handguns in Canada and instead focus on increasing punishment for violent gun criminals and urban gangs. My second petition calls upon the House of Commons to amend the new Veteran Charter, the Canadian Forces Members and Veterans Re-establishment and Compensation Act, and implement changes that ensure injured veterans receive benefits equivalent to or greater than those granted prior to 2006. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And there you go. Excellent. Thank you for standing up for us, David.
Well, I mean, this is an important issue, and my colleagues are working very hard trying to get a message through to the government, and obviously they're not having any of it. But it's about public pressure now. It's about your organization and another organization pressuring the government, saying, "Hey, this is foolish. This is not going to stop criminals from using guns." Or, if they don't have guns, they'll use knives, they'll use axes, they'll use a vehicle as a weapon.
It's become ideological. It's a civil disarmament agenda that they've been pushing for 60 years in increments. And we've had various elements of liberals or red Tories push gun control, like Kim Campbell did on us, which all of it was unnecessary, and none of it does anything to do with stopping crime. I mean, the research on it's pretty clear that the crime rates are unaffected by gun control. It doesn't change behavior to have somebody put a piece of paper beside a firearm and say, well, now you have a license, you're safe, right? I always like to point out when, like I have a license, a possession acquisition license, and Ethan will never be able to have a license like this unless we get the laws changed, because I own things that he can never own. And it isn't okay, right? Like on the back of mine, and Ethan, when you get to be a bit older, you'll get one of these things too. Mine has a big list of things I'm allowed to buy and sell and possess. But I can only sell those things to other people who have the same license. But it's a very small list of people. So if the license was truly about public safety, if it was really about public safety, why couldn't we just exchange our property freely amongst ourselves? But it's not. It's not about public safety, because now I am hamstrung and own a bunch of things I can't sell, and upon my death, the government takes over from me, unless it's given to a museum or something, and maybe there's a tax credit. But it's basically a delayed form of theft: the registration, licensing, and classification of firearms. And these are three liberal elements of gun control that I really get concerned about. Seeing people continue to support when they don't understand the nature of it. Like David, you and I grew up in a time where that was not the case at all. You didn't need licenses. You had the FAC for a little while, but before that, it was all about being a tool. It was a tool, and you needed this. You could borrow somebody, and you go out and hunt, and you did what you needed to do, or you went target practicing, or you went on the trap line, as I did with my dad a couple of times out trapping. going for fisher and martin and mink and lynx too a couple of times. I saw lynx out there. The first time I ever fired a handgun was in a little gravel pit out by the trapper's cabin we were working. And I suppose, Ethan, you were saying you shot a 9mm. Is that right? 9mm pistol? Do you remember what kind it was?
Not exactly sure, but
it was a fun one, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was fun.
Right on.
But my grandson also has, pellet handguns. Like he has a, BB gun, and he has a,
Tell us about your pellet pistols and things, Ethan. I'd like to hear what you've got.
Yeah, so I got a pellet pistol. I have a pellet gun. I have a BB gun that's currently broken.
Oh, I had the same trouble with my stuff. I'll tell you. I've got a pretty nice little pellet pistol now that I really like. It's a Mark 6 Webley imitation. It looks exactly like a full-size Webley from World War I. And boy, oh boy, does it send those pellets out. It's just a beautiful piece. I love shooting it.
His one gun has, I think he puts 6 pellets in it, and it's like a cartridge, and he'll shoot. But he's actually very accurate with. I was shocked. He went out and there were some squirrels that were giving us some problems. You know how they get into the buildings, make a mess, and he actually is just as good with the handgun as with a rifle. So he has that skill set, and he would never have that skill set if we never had access to guns, and it's very fortunate that we live in a country, and he got the experience and how to use a gun and when you and all the things that come with it, and what comes with a responsibility also. So.
And that's really good that you started him off early at the age of 8, right? Teaching him the responsibility of a gun, how to use a gun properly, and the safety aspect of it. So, I think younger age is just great to teach the young ones a little bit of responsibility and what a firearm is.
Well, as a firearms biathlon coach, one of the things we've noticed is that the development for the motor skills, hand-eye coordination, and so on, that's necessary to excellent marksmanship really gets highly developed between the ages of 7 to 10. So at 8 years old, when you can handle the firearm safely and use it responsibly and make good judgments, that's really an optimum time to start a young person shooting, because then they're learning those fine motor skills right at the optimum time to pick them up and hardwire them. So it's good you started doing that, Ethan. That's terrific.
When we look back when I was growing up, there was, our parents had a sense of knowing that we can handle a gun. So I can tell you a story. One time, me and my friends, there's a little lake with an island on it. We used to build a raft and go across. We used to bring a 22 and provisions with us. Like we went fishing. We shot rough grouse and so we lived the whole week just on what we caught and shot, but our parents never worried about us because they knew we had the skills and the safety behind us, so they never ever worried because we knew how to use a weapon, or according to liberals, but it's a tool for me. We'd be able to use it in a responsible manner. And nowadays, we probably go to jail if we did that now. We let our children go at the age of 13, 14.
Yeah. It'd be a hue and cry to be on the front page on the Toronto Star.
Yeah. David, that's a great point. And what you're really talking about is a shift in control from the individual, or in this case, your parents, to the state. And we've seen that happen, escalate over the last decade, where now the government is basically telling you with all these layered legislations that we don't trust you with a firearm, right? You need to prove yourself every single day, and you'll be watched. We're treated prejudicially under the law. We have a reverse onus if we get caught in that web of regulation. So the state now has lost confidence in some of the most law-abiding citizens in Canada, and that's not right. Right. So, I mean, what we need to do, and collectively we need to do this, not just our organization and people who are not associated with any organization, and the MPs and the people in government who still believe in, individual freedom and liberty and private property, is to tear down this regime of gun control that doesn't work anymore. As Sheldon was saying, the empirical evidence is out. This has nothing to do with public safety. It's all about advancing an ideology and a march towards taking guns away from everybody in the end. So one day Ethan may not, maybe his BB guns will be gone as well too, and he'll be relegated to going back to slingshots, right? That is not the Canada we want. That's not the Canada we grew up with. That is not our heritage. This is coming from, foreign influences as well too, which is not right. We don't have to buy into that. And the way you do that is you step up, and, we'd like to see more of the Conservative MPs get up there and speak to this more directly, just the way you have.
Well, it's important, and I appreciate what you guys are doing, and this is a real hard go for most of us. Knowing that day after day we go after the government and say, listen, guns aren't a problem, criminals are a problem, gangs are a problem, and going after a law-abiding gun owner is not going to change the criminal activity.
No,
criminals don't care about acquiring a gun illegally. They get their guns from anywhere. Some of them, a lot of stuff is brought in from the United States, and we need to do more measures to make sure guns keep. The criminals don't have access to these guns. So better border security, bigger, larger fines or jail terms for anybody using a gun in a crime. Or we got to do more of that and less of going after law-abiding Canadians, because I guess we're an easy target in their mind. So we got to make us. And I think it's just all for show.
When you start regulating anything, of course, that's very easy to just keep regulating, right? So, they sit there and say, okay, it's about the gun and it's not about the behavior. And I think the focus has to be on not the gun, but what you do with it. It's got to be on that behavior. And I mean, some of us have been like machine gun collectors or converted full auto collectors or sport shooters, or use firearms for protection. I have a free miner's license in BC and I'm licensed to pack a revolver or a semi-automatic pistol, depending on where I'm going and what the nature of what I might run into as a problem is. And it's for defense too, right? These are realistic and quite solid reasons for people to own and use firearms. But the best reason of all is because you want to have them. Why do I like shooting? Because I like it. Why do you like shooting, Ethan?
It's just, it's fun, and it's just, I don't know, I like the feeling of helping out, getting rid of all the pests around the farm. And
exactly.
Ethan,
that's great. Ethan, I got a squirrel problem up here sometime, and it sounds you're like the right guy to bring in for a quick hit. Of course, I've got two daughters that are crack shots too, so I don't have to worry too much about that. But it's great.
Ethan, I just want to ask you a question. I mean, and this is something we get a lot from the anti-gun people out there. We tell them that we enjoy shooting, that gun ranges are some of the safest spaces in Canada, and everything else. And they said, "quote unquote," go find yourself another hobby. What do you think about that statement, Ethan?
Well, I mean, shooting ranges, they're proven to be safe, and I mean, if you love what you do, like shooting, might as well just stick to it.
Stick to your guns.
There we go. The future. That's right.
Well, it sounds like your grandfather and your parents are raising you right, Ethan, I got to say. So what's up next on the agenda, David, for you and in Parliament? I guess there's going to be the Parliament's not going to be sitting for a while, or what's happening?
Yeah, we're going to go back in mid-January, theoretically. We never know with this Liberal government on what they're going to do. a lot of things they do, it makes no sense. But we have to get back to Parliament. I mean, we got to do what we got to do to ensure Canada remains Canada. I mean, we got to look at our heritage. Especially when you're looking back. For myself, anyways, is gun use has been passed down from generation to generation. From my grandfather, he came from Ukraine, and he broke this land along with other people, and guns were a tool, just like the axes were and everything else, and that's our heritage. I mean, Indigenous people also. I live close to a lot of Indigenous communities, and when I was growing up, we didn't have a lot of money. We lived on a farm. We had beef, we had pigs, we had pork, and chickens and turkeys. So we ate lots. We had a lot of food, and but we didn't have a lot of spare money. So what we did is and my friends from Buffalo Lake Métis settlement, we had friends there. We all trapped. We in the springtime we shot beavers, muskrats, and so it was a part of who we are. We if we wanted something, we had to go get it. And one of the things, the easiest things was for me anyway, was trapping and making a few extra dollars so I can buy what I need to buy. And I would hate to see that go, because there's less and less trappers out there, and they try to demonize trapping also. So oh yes,
they built this country. You may not know, but as part of our role as an NGO at the United Nations, one of the things we make a strong effort to do is to protect Indigenous treaty rights and firearms use. And this is something we raise frequently. In fact, I've raised it every time we've spoken at the United Nations about the importance of protecting Indigenous treaty rights as part of the greater Canadian society, which also deserves the protection of their firearms rights and hunting rights and so on. In order, to be citizens in this society, we need to be looking out for each other, and that's a role we've taken on. And I find it very interesting when I go to the United Nations meetings, and they're not very sympathetic to just you're a bunch of gun nuts and all this, but when I start talking about fundamental rights, especially for Indigenous peoples, they do sit up and pay attention, and we have gotten some pretty good feedback from that. And I know that the Indigenous communities are very concerned about where this is all going and what it could mean for them, as well as what it could mean for Canadians generally. And we're very vigilant to make sure that we are aware of what the needs of all Canadians are with regards to firearms ownership and use.
Yeah, and I find it quite off-putting when we mention Indigenous rights and they need guns to hunt and trap, their traditions. This is part of their culture. It's
Absolutely.
hunting. And they always saying we got to ensure that we protect the Indigenous people's culture, their language. But when it comes to gun ownership, they're saying, "Hey, sorry,
Yeah.
Really no." But they want to discuss that.
No, they don't.
They sort of will talk about anything and everything else, but they want to address the Indigenous people's rights to own firearms for hunting and trapping, sport shooting. I mean, the government got to realize that they just can't ignore Indigenous rights. And with this new gun laws, they are absolutely taking rights away from Indigenous communities.
Well, they are. They're taking them away from Indigenous peoples, but they're taking them away from all Canadians. And I think we have a very strong and common bond between Canadian firearms owners, regardless of their ethnicity, as to where this is going. Because I often hear people tell me, well, the Liberals are going to do this and this for Indigenous people, but I think that's really not true. There's still problems with water on reserves in some places. There's still problems with access. There's problems with various ailments that afflict modern society that need direct attention. And these things aren't being addressed. But firearms ownership, when we've got these old treaty rights that go back to the Quebec Act and so on, that talk about so many firearms, so much ammunition per year, and all the rest of it. I've got an Assiniboine friend who I talk to about this quite frequently, and I urge him to take advantage of his treaty rights to get his ammunition every year, because he has that spelled out, and it's really quite clear. And I think that that it's good that we're on this, like we get it, and I'm encouraged that there are some Native folks, Indigenous peoples, who do step forward and speak out from time to time. And I think of Chief Charlie Boy from the Chilcotin Band, who spoke out at a rally we did several years ago. Very, very blunt, clear delivery. Like he was like, I was like, whoa, can you actually say that? and then you hear others that they just don't want to talk about it sometimes, or they don't think they don't think it matters. And I'd like to see more of Indigenous Canadians getting involved in this fight, because it does affect all of us, and we all have to stand together.
Just the other day, I was talking to one of my friends, and he says, every day I go to my gun cabinet, open it up, and see what gun he's going to lose today, because you never know how they're going to interpret the law. I mean, guns legal to use today, and maybe tomorrow it's not. So, and instantly you become a criminal.
Well,
and that's the problem.
And the focus has been on the gun, and it's not been on the behavior. And I think what we need to do is turn that around and get it away from classifying firearms, restricting and prohibiting firearms, and licensing people, and turn it back to, okay, somebody did something bad, and they need to be held accountable for that. That's old common law that we seem to be fleeing from in what we've been doing.
I think that, and David, you kind of touched on this as well too, that the liberals, they know what they're doing. I mean, they're using the classic divide and conquer strategy to advance their goal, right? They tried to do wholesale civil disarmament back in 1995 with the Firearms Act. There was great pushback, civil resistance, and now it's an incremental steps, but still in the same direction, right? And the problem is that this kind of strategy works because our community is not as cohesive as we'd like it to be. We have, especially hunters, for instance, who say, well, yeah, I don't have an AR-15 or I don't have a pistol. What do I care if they ban so-called military style assault rifles, right? And of course, they poll people and everything else. The liberals take that information and they roll with it, and that works, right? Their liberal base votes for that, and all of a sudden, the people with semi-automatic carbines and soon-to-be pistols no longer have that. But eventually, there will be nothing but bolt-action hunting rifles left, and those people need to realize that firearms taken from one section of this community is the same as taking it from them, because eventually they're coming for them, and they need to understand that.
Well, they're even going after bolt-action firearms too.
They're coming from them all. They're coming for them all.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's if it's not today, it's going to be tomorrow, and if not, then they're going to systematically do it. Like Charles said, he hit it right on the bullseye there. They're going to come after the sport shooters now, the AR-15s, these military style assault weapons, as they call them. And then once they take care of that, let's move on to the next one. Let's go to the hunting rifles, 12-gauge shotguns. We still don't have a ruling on that. And like Sheldon said, a lot of bolt actions. I mean, we're going to see at the point by the time we hit 2030, you won't even be allowed to buy a Nerf gun without a PAL.
Yeah, well, it's true.
I think the PALs will be gone by then anyway.
So has this come up in caucus much, David? Have you guys been talking about the approach for this? I mean, I know some MPs don't take this very seriously, and others take it very seriously, and there is a mix in the caucus for the CPC about it, but I hope it's an issue on the radar.
Yeah, it's definitely an issue on the radar, and we realize that they're taking one gun out, and eventually in 20 years we won't have a gun. That's what I feel right now. And also, I heard, I don't know how true it is, but now they're going to limit amount of ammunition you can have. I mean, that's just a backstory sort of thing that government didn't really say that, but conversations is that, yeah, they could potentially go after our ammunition, which is a big concern.
Well, they've been talking like that at the United Nations. And I mean, we were instrumental in working with the explosives branch about ammunition and how much ammunition and powder and so on hand loaders and shooters could store in their homes. And we went through a very extensive process with the industry, not industry, but the explosives branch researchers to show them what people actually do. I mean, a sports shooter who's in a competitive basis can go through 20,000 rounds in a year, as I did when I was active in the shooting competition circuit a bit when I was in the military in the 80s and teaching shooting teams. We were shooting 15, 20,000 rounds. A biathlon 22 shooter can do the same. A shotgun shooter as well. You know, they go through even more than that, some of them. So you don't buy ammunition in small batches. You buy it in large batches because you want consistency. Because good shooting is about consistency, as Ethan well knows. He's going after some of those little predators, which are not the easiest things to get, I can tell you. You know, it's all about doing the same things over and over and getting it right. And ammunition uniformity is critical for that. So,
well, I agree with you 100% there. I know we had some old ammo and get a lot of duds. I mean, you can have a lot of rounds, but you know, and we bought, I think they were one of those ones on sale that were at half price, and being me, I said, oh, that's good. And it was old ammo or cheap ammo, and I bet you how many, over half were duds.
Mm.
So I agree with you. The quality is everything, and consistency. So buying a batch, you know, it's in larger volumes, you don't have the same problems.
You know, David, and you know, we're at Christmas time, and everybody's trying to buy themselves. I just bought some ammo myself. It's getting scarcer and scarcer out there, and there's others involved. You know, there's the political scene in the United States that's playing it as well too. That's constricting the supply. But I just want to get back to something you said about, you know, in a couple of years, you know, we won't have firearms anymore. Well, I think we'll still have firearms, but the people who possess them will have illegal firearms. Unfortunately, you know, they were legal before, and the government will make them illegal. But you know, the sense that we're getting from our community is that, you know, this is unfair what they're doing to us. You know, the measures that they're taking are not, you know, they're disingenuous and they're lying. And you have a lot of people that have now lost confidence and trust in the government, right? So the way that plays out is civil resistance up to including civil disobedience. We saw that recently in Quebec, where you know, we had people that were asked to re-register their long guns into the Long Gun Registry of Quebec, and you know, less than 20% complied. I see a future like that, and I always, when I talk to MPs, I say this is not a good scenario where you have officially 2.3 million people with firearms, which is going to be a lot more. There's probably in the realm of, you know, 5 to 6 million people out there with firearms who are going to drop off the grid, and you know, they just won't renew their firearms license. They'll hold on to their firearms, and they won't be regulated. I don't think that's the kind of situation that Canada wants, right? You know, some regulation is fine. It has to make sense, right? But when it gets to the point where it's so onerous and arbitrary and tyrannical, right, and doesn't make any sense, you know, you don't, and without consent of the people who are actually, you know, being, you know, it's being applied on, at the end of it, the blowback is not going to be good for Canada as a whole.
Yeah, I agree with you. More people are getting frustrated and angry, and you know, a lot of people says we got to do something. And one of the things I recommend to do is bombard the government with phone calls, emails. You know, even peaceful protests is important. Also, we got to stand up and say, listen, no, we gave an inch, then they took a mile. We give another inch, they take another mile. And my statement has earlier been 20 years. If you keep on giving up one gun at a time, there won't be no guns left.
Exactly.
So, and I think it's very important that gun owners and people that understand that guns are actually private property and that were obtained legally. Anything you obtain legally should never ever be taken away, from my perspective.
Well, that's right. And I mean, what we're talking about is socialism versus capitalism, and socialists just don't support the ownership of private property. They are very loose about that. It's communal. It's not personal. And conservatives do support private property, and they always have, and they really must always continue to do so. And it's a fundamental difference between the socialists who call themselves liberals and the rest of them on the left, and those who are not of that ilk and who do see the value of being able to work hard and get ahead and to be able to enjoy the use of their property.
So, David, Trudeau came out the other day and inadvertently kind of signaled that there may be a spring election. I don't think he meant to say what he said, but the cat, I think, is out of the bag now. And, all the parties are basically churning up. Even the Conservatives, we see candidates come to the forefront. They're in races. They're getting elected and acclaimed in various ridings and whatnot. So, and this is really the best solution for the situation, right? Is we need to vanquish the Liberals from power, bring in a strong majority conservative government, but a government who will not leave the current regime of gun control intact. I can tell you that our community is, as you said, anxious, fearful, but also expecting substantial immediate change from the Conservatives when they get in. We will back you guys to the hilt, right? But we want to see substantive change. We're hearing rumblings again of this Harperist incremental change thing. We don't want to, offend too many liberals out there. Well, you know what? Our community is being persecuted every single day. We want justice, and we're not willing to wait anymore. We've already been persecuted too long. Yeah. And we need people like you, David, to take that standard and that battle flag into the House of Commons and tell the rest of your colleagues out there that this is what we need to do. The Conservatives need to be bold and courageous and do what our community is expecting of you.
And a lot of this stuff is common sense. I mean, if you lawfully use your property, you don't create any issues as a tool. But if we're willing to give up one tool at a time, we'll have nothing. And so I think common sense does say, listen, this what you're doing is stealing or taking away our property, and
it's stealing.
We need property rights in this country, and quite frankly, we don't, because they won't be able to take our guns if we have property rights.
But they do it through the regime now, through the gun laws that are out there. So if we can knock that down, the next liberal government won't just pick it up like Trudeau did, and ran with it to, again, another ban, and probably another ban in the spring. So all those laws need to be pushed down because they don't work anyway. And then we rebuild and refocus basically on crime control, not gun control, because gun control is not crime control. The empirical evidence is out there.
Well, the biggest gun grabber in the country up until what we've got now was Kim Campbell. I mean, she banned hundreds of different models of firearms. And I know people who actually smashed their firearms to pieces because they were required to turn them into the police. It was called prohibited without grandfathering, and you had to turn it in, and that was it. And then there were others that just went underground. And Charles is quite right. The talk on the street is that people are not going to comply with the onerous and what they see as theft of their stuff. They're just not going to go along with it. And I think that what this does is it builds a gradual and deep-seated disrespect for law and order. And that's a dangerous path to be on. So. And especially when firearms owners are, by and large, the most law-abiding community in the country. This is a community that's, very patriotic, very much paying their taxes, participating in their communities, all of that, and yet they're being pilloried.
It's injustice.
I agree, 100%. And it's just like I wonder what the uproar would be from coast to coast to coast if the government decides, okay, all trucks that burn more than some liters are banned, got to turn them in, gone. Or if your vehicle is worth X amount of dollars, it's a Ferrari, it's not necessary, we're going to come seize it. There'll be a big uproar. Property is property, whether it's a car or whether it's a gun, lawfully obtained. They didn't get it illegally. They paid for it with their hard tax money, and it's theft. I think the people would take a notice if their vehicles are being banned because of fuel consumption or the make, or it's a sports car. You don't need that. So maybe they would wake up if they realize that when they're coming from our guns, maybe they're going to be coming after your vehicles next.
Well, I look at gun control as an indicator issue. If they want your guns, what else do they want to steal? David, Ethan, it's been a real pleasure to have both of you on our program today, and I hope our listeners and our viewers really learned something, as I have, about your perspectives. And we'll have to have you on. We'll have to have you both on again. I'm really keen to hear how this next spring is going to go for the varmint control efforts there.
Yes, not well with the permits.
And maybe you can send us a couple photos, and we can post it up and show the viewers of you out there hunting all these varmints.
Well, I can do that for you guys. And also, you didn't ask Ethan what his favorite gun is.
Yeah. What is it, Ethan?
Yeah, my favorite gun's probably my 410 shotgun.
What kind is it?
410.
Do you know who made it? Is it a Mossberg, or is it a... Like, I've got a little Mossberg bolt action 410. I love it.
What is it?
I forgot what one. But it's a single shot. Yeah, so it's nice and light.
Is it a break open?
Yeah, it breaks open.
Oh, okay.
And it folds because you can go on side by side, and we fold the gun up nicely. And it's a single shot. It's light. It's and it's not very expensive. So it's a lot easier to if you get a scratch on it or a scuff, it's no big deal. It was only
Hey, it's a hunting firearm. It's going to get scratched and scuffed.
Exactly. So I just want to thank you guys for having us on, and also I'd like to wish you guys a Merry Christmas. And
yes, you as well.
A liberal-free New Year.
Yes, and while your grandson hunts varmints out in the field, please keep up your hard work in hunting liberals in the House of Commons. All the best to both of you. Thanks very much, and Merry Christmas to
everybody out there.
And everyone that tuned in tonight, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.
All the best.
Thanks for listening to this episode of NFA Talk. Like and follow the NFA on social media, and sign up to become a member.